Hey everyone, this is Max and Max CTCG. Thanks for joining me in another video. So in this video, we're going over a new type of structure deck that looks like it's being announced in the OCG called Cyber Dragon Tactical Tri Deck List. And right now this is something only announced in the OCG, and I think it's really interesting for a few different reasons, so we'll discuss that. This could really revolutionize the way structure decks are made, making them a lot more competitive. You see we have no new cards. And the price is 11,000 yen, which for our money, if that was converted, it's I think around 799. So I'm assuming that's the price of structure decks in the OCG. I'm not actually sure. So for us, I would assume if we did get this, it would just be a standard, like I think 1099 structure deck. So I think it would be around that price. But what's really interesting is the way these decks are actually set up, giving you 3 copies of a card, which usually a structure deck only comes with 1 card. So that makes it that you have to buy 3 structure decks to get 3 copies. Since in Yu-Gi-Oh you can play up to 3 copies of the same card, you have to buy 3 to get all the best playable cards in the deck. So that kind of works around this. Plus there's better cards in the deck. There's a lot of really good staples. This is a much better example of what a playable structure deck could look like competitively. It's not perfect, but it has so many options that we've really never seen before. Usually we get like 1 reprint, 2 good reprints in a card set like this, where this is a very different approach, and we'll kind of talk about some pros and cons to why this might only be in the OCG and some things like that. What we'll do first is just run through all the cards in the deck. There's no new cards, but let's kind of label all these out for you. So we have 3 Cyber Dragon, 3 Cyber Dragon Core, 2 Cyber Dragon Hers, 1 Cyber Dragon Naster, 1 Cyber Dark Chimera, 1 Jizakiru, the Star Destroying Kaiju, 1 Therian King Regulus, 2 Galaxy Soldier, 2 Ash Blossom and Joy Spring, and 2 Maxi. For spells, we have 2 Power Bond, 3 Cyber Emergency, 1 Cyber Repair Plant, 1 Cyber Dark Realm, 1 Machine Duplication, 2 Clockwork Knight, 1 Triple Tactics Thrust, 1 Triple Tactics Talent, 1 Sales Band, 1 Rakeki, 1 Harpy's Feather Duster, 2 Lightning Storm, 2 Called by the Grave, 1 Forbidden Droplets. In traps, we have 1 Red Reboot, 1 Infinite Permanence. For the extra deck, we have 10 cards, 1 Cyber End Dragon, 1 Cyber Twin Dragon, 1 Chimera Tech Mega Fleet Dragon, 1 Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon, and 1 Chimera Tech Rampage Dragon. We have 1 Cyber Dragon Nova, 1 Cyber Dragon Infinity, 1 Cyber Dragon Seeger, 1 Sky Striker Ace Azalea, and 1 Salamangreat Almirage. So there are a few cool things with the deck. One, extra deck wise, just go backwards. They're giving you cards that even help the deck that aren't focused only on the strategy, like Azalea and Almirage. It's a cool way to get core into the grave of Almirage, and a generic 2 to go into of Azalea. So I think that's a cool aspect, and they're giving you a lot of good Cyber Dragon cards to work with, where a lot of times you'd only get like Nova and Infinity. Here they're giving you like Chimera Tech monsters, the Cyber Fusions. So I think there's some really cool stuff to do with the extra deck, making it like a much more playable extra deck. The only extra deck that was really close to playable that we got was the Trap Tricks one, giving you most of what you need, at least as a one of. So that's a cool change that we're kind of seeing here. When it comes to tech cards, we're seeing a ton of staples. Infinite Permanence, Red Reboot for the OCG, even that's banned here. Droplets, Called by the Grave, Lightning Storm, Duster, Rakeki, Sales Band, Thrust and Talents. These are all amazing cards that are all staples that you can get a ton of. And by buying 3 of this, if you were to do that, you'd get like a ton of staples that you need in 3 ofs, which could still be worth it, even though you get most of the 3 ofs you need in terms of the structure deck. So I think that's really cool. Really awesome change. Ash Blossom and Maxi as well as hand traps. Regulus is a good Omni Negate option for Machine and Therion decks. So some really cool options here, and a nice way to make a playable structure deck. Now, a couple reasons why I don't think we're going to get this type of deck in the TCG. Or if we do, it's going to be heavily stripped of cards, which is why I think they just won't do it. Is one, the OCG has a different rarity model printing process than we do. They'll print SP Little Knight as a quarter century, secret, and like a super, where we only get her as like a secret and a quarter century. So when I remember looking at those prices, when there's a lot of complaining about, price inflation, even though we just got a huge reprint set for Rarity collection, SP Little Knight was over $100. A lot of other cards, the wanted cards, were very expensive. Some totaling over 100 at one point. So I think when it comes to that, we are seeing SP Little Knight being like a $5, $10 super in Japan, and the secret was like 25, you know, that's a huge difference. So even if it's expensive for a super, so that's an option you get to have for a cheap version of a card that you don't have to spend over $100 for a secret. So I think because of the way Japan prints their rarity model, you know, giving players access to cheaper cards, giving them a bunch of these in reprint sets that are this cheap, you know, I don't think upsets their printing process as much. Where in the TCG we get higher rarity reprints, and they usually milk getting these reprints out before they ban cards. You can look at Baron. Baron was a very expensive, over $100 card at one point when it was at the height of its, you know, popularity as a secret, and you know, then it got printed into the Ground Rarity collection, was out I think for around 6 months, and then got banned. You know, they're going to want to do this with the wanted cards, with, you know, a lot of these cards, you know, reprint thrust into the ground. We're not just going to get a cheap thrust reprint. So I think, you know, with some of these, we have gotten these as options for reprints. So a lot of these cards aren't that expensive overall due to Rarity collection, but I just, you know, don't know if I would see them doing this. You know, maybe they would and just remove thrust, you know, and some of the really money cards they still want to reprint, but, you know, I'm not sure on that. So that's why I could potentially see them just pulling it. Now that I think about it, because of the fact that some of these have been reprinted, maybe they would do it with just thrust being taken out, since that still has a lot of money value in terms of the reprint equity the card has. But overall, I'm not sure if we'll get something like this in the game, but I really hope so, because I think this would push, you know, competitive Yu-Gi-Oh to be a little bit easier for people to enter. You know, a lot of players, they buy a deck and they're like, oh, I got a deck, I'm good to go. They don't know they need to buy 3, you know, to get all the copies they need. So I'd almost rather there maybe be like a starter structure deck option that's $10, that's 1 copy, you know, and maybe even one that's $20, that's all 3, that's like a much more playable version, you know, kind of catering to 2 people, you know, would be something. I don't know if that would work monetary wise and be a good move for the company financially, but, you know, I would like to see moves to making the game more accessible competitively, kind of giving everything you need, even if it's a slight price increase, you know, if the price increase is heavily worth it. And more access to, you know, these tech cards, these, you know, staples that we use in the game, I think is always a good thing. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think that this is something we're going to get? Do you like the kind of idea of seeing all these reprints, a much more playable structure deck? It's not perfect, but it's, you know, a much better start than pretty much anything we've ever gotten before when it comes to structure decks. So let me know that in the comments, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.